Hi, I'm Laura Watkinson, and this is The Golden Cage, a deliciously dark story written by Anna Castagnoli and illustrated by Carll Cneut, which I translated for the publisher Book Island. I'd like to read it to you today, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. The Golden Cage, or The True Story of the Blood Princess. The Emperor's daughter was called Valentina, and she was a nightmare. She had everything her heart desired, but still she was not happy. She had 390 pairs of shoes, 812 hats, and 50 snakeskin belts. She liked the things she owned, but most of all, she loved her birds. In her garden, Valentina had 101 bird cages. Each of them was large enough for a person to live inside. Every cage held birds with such fabulous feathers and such bedazzling beaks that ambassadors came from the other side of the world to admire the magnificent garden. But, oh dear, so many servants lost their heads over those birds. Valentina said, "I want a bird with glass wings." Valentina said, "I want a bird with a coral bill." Valentina said, "I want a bird that spurts water like a fountain." And so a servant set off to search for that one special bird in the deepest craters of the highest volcanoes, where the heat turned anyone who went too close into cinders and glass. And another servant crossed storm-tossed seas to reach the nests that birds had built in coral islands. And other servants went looking among the slippery rocks behind waterfalls, or in bamboo forests beside rushing rivers, or in the land of fire, where it always rains. The servants looked everywhere. Many servants died on those long and exhausting expeditions. However, they were almost the lucky ones, because if anyone dared to return with empty hands... Chop! Valentina the Blood Princess immediately had their heads chopped off. Worst of all, the Emperor's daughter often made up the rare birds that she demanded for her cages. Her poor trembling servants brought her the most beautiful birds in the world. Green-billed malcoas, lyrebirds, hoopoes from the Nile, and many other rare birds. They were not the wonderful and amazing imaginary birds that Valentina had requested, but still, she locked them up inside her cages. Then she pursed her lips and said with a pout, "This is not the bird I asked for." And chop! Another servant lost his head. Valentina paced restlessly among her 101 cages. The newest cage was still empty. It was the most beautiful one of all, a golden cage that her father had given her for her last birthday, when she was 10. "Those stupid servants," she wailed. "If only they would bring me the bird I asked for, I could finally fill the golden cage." But that bird was never found, and the golden cage remained empty. With an average loss of 10 servants' heads per bird, life in the Emperor's palace went on relatively quietly. Until the night when Valentina dreamt about a bird that could talk. The talking bird was such good company in her dream, saying such sweet things and saying them only to her, that the next morning the Emperor's daughter woke up in an unusually good mood. She called all of the palace servants together and made a solemn promise. "If one of you can bring me the talking bird, I will declare my collection complete, and no more servants will lose their heads." But where could they find a talking bird? A bird with a red beak could pass as a bird with a coral bill. A bird with wings that was so thin they were almost transparent was a bit like a bird with glass wings. But a talking bird? A stone-cold silence descended upon the room. The servants looked at one another, not knowing quite what to do. With little hope in their hearts, they set off for the most distant corners of the globe. One after another, they brought Valentina the tamest parrots from the noblest courts in the West. These birds could converse most politely, from "If you please," to "So very kind." They captured other parrots in the east, birds that could recite every tale from 1001 Nights. But it was no good. The parrots did not please Valentina. The birds calmed her for a day, but the next morning she realised that she had been deceived. These birds couldn't really talk. They only repeated what people had said to them. "They're just ordinary, dumb parrots," yelled Valentina. And chop! Another head hit the floor. The months passed. The seasons went by. The wind rose and fell. No one found the talking bird. All they found was yet more parrots. Valentina grew more desperate and ill-tempered by the day. She had to sell all her belongings to pay for yet more new servants and yet more expeditions. The palace became the colour of blood. She sold 389 pairs of shoes. She kept one pair on her feet. She sold 811 hats. She kept one hat on her head. She sold 49 snakeskin belts. She kept one belt around her waist. Until finally, one by one, she had to sell all of her precious birds too. The palace slowly turned into a ruin, and the golden cage remained empty. Life in the palace went from bad to worse. An average of 100 servants a month lost their heads. Chop! 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 Heads rolled, day after day. Chop! 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 Until, one day, a servant Valentina had never seen before requested an audience with her. He was a boy with eyes as cunning as arrows, and he said to her, "I know where to find the talking bird. If I bring it to you, you must never ever have anyone else's head chopped off. But first, noble princess, you must make me a promise." "What promise? Tell me." "Promise me you will be patient." "Patient? Why? You stupid servant." "Promise." "Fine, I promise." 11 long months later, the servant returned with a little box in his hands. Inside that box was a tiny little nest, and inside that nest was a teeny, tiny little egg. "Look, my noble princess," said the servant. "This is an egg of the talking bird." She picked up the egg and gazed at it in wonder. And she told the servant to leave. She let him keep his head. Very gently, the princess carried the egg to the golden cage. She was so happy that she made a nest for it out of her own hair. She stayed there, waiting patiently for the talking bird to hatch. She waited and waited and waited. This story, as it has been told so far, is a true one. I've heard it told many times, and always by people who could certainly be trusted. I also, once, had the privilege, for a moment, of holding in my hands an old photograph of the garden with the cages. Behind a faded magnolia tree, I could make out a few empty cages. The photograph must have been taken after the palace fell to ruin. The end of the story, however, is never the same. There are those who say that Valentina spent the rest of her days trying and failing to teach a common or garden blackbird to talk. There are also those who say that she fell asleep on the egg and broke it. She was so sad that she cried all of the tears she had, and so she was forced to smile forevermore. And then there are others who say that the bird that came out of the egg really was the talking bird, but that it had nothing to say to the Blood Princess.